All right, all right. On today's episode, we have Eric Birkhimer. I was put in touch with Eric through a friend. I'm really glad they put us together. It was a good conversation. It was an important conversation. Eric is a addict that is in recovery. He's been clean for years upon years now, but he's got some interesting stories from his addiction days, and he also talks about how he got clean. He actually now works for a recovery center or a rehabilitation center, and you'll hear all the information for that particular place at the beginning of the podcast and then again at the end. He's a very genuine guy. He's a really nice guy. Like I said, he's got a little bit of a crazy story, but I think this is an important podcast. I think the opioid epidemic in the United States is unbelievable. And it just doesn't seem to really slow down very much. We just keep seeming to give them a new, stronger form of the opioid left and right. But I encourage everybody to listen to the episode. I think it can help some people. I think Eric himself would love to help people. So without further ado, here's Eric. All right, in the studio today we have Eric Birkhimer from Banyan Treatment Center. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing real good. I'd like you to just go ahead and throw out your social media info for Banyan and the website just right away, just so we get it out there for people to know.
Sure, absolutely. So I work for Banyan Treatment Center. Our corporate headquarters is in Pompano Beach, Florida.
Okay.
From there, we have 10 current operational facilities. We are getting ready to open our 11th. Our 11th will be opened in Palm Springs, California.
Oh, okay.
We have 2 existing facilities in Illinois, 2 in Pennsylvania, 5 in Florida, and 1 in the Boston, Massachusetts area. Different services provided at each location, ranging from inpatient, detox, residential services for primary substance abuse, extended care programs, dual diagnosis programs, and we do have a few primary mental health programs. Okay,
good deal. And the website is banyantreatmentcenter.com?
Correct. Yep.
And what about your Facebook?
We have our own digital media division in our company that takes care of all of our social media. I personally just kind of do my own stuff.
Okay.
But best way to contact us is, there's always 800 numbers on our websites.
Okay.
You call those, you'll have to navigate the voice prompts.
Right.
But if you call 888-223-8924, that's a direct line, for any inquiry information on our programs.
Okay, good deal. All right, so as I was telling you, all the time, to start the podcast, we try to get top 5 movies from people just to give people a way to relate to the person they're just meeting for the first time.
Sure.
So let's go ahead and jump right into that. What would you say is in your top 5?
So my top 5 is going to be probably a little unorthodox. I'm an 80s guy.
Okay.
I'm still stuck in the 80s with my movies.
Nothing wrong with that.
My favorite movie of all time is Conan the Barbarian.
With Arnold
Schwarzenegger.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Nice.
That's my favorite movie.
I do that. Now, is that the one, Conan the Barbarian? Is that the one where they go to like the crazy glass or ice castle?
That's the second one.
That's the Destroyer.
The Destroyer.
Okay.
So the first one was with
James Earl Jones.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
and all the snakes.
That's it. That's my favorite flick of all time.
That's a great one.
Followed probably by Kickboxer.
Okay, I want to go back to that Conan real quick, though, because
Sure.
a movie on the same genre, Arnold Schwarzenegger, that is one of my favorite movies, is Red Sonja.
Yeah, with Brigitte Nelson.
Yep.
I like that movie, too.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
All right, so you said your next one was Kickboxer with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
That's the one where he fights the guy with the ponytail.
Yeah, and they end up using glass on their tape, right?
That's it.
That's an excellent flick too. So you're like a lot of these 80s action movies is what we're gonna see here, huh?
Yep. My third one's probably gonna be a comedy, Fletch.
Oh, Fletch with Dan Aykroyd.
Chevy Chase.
Chevy Chase. Yep.
Yep.
That's one I haven't seen in a long time. But he plays like a goofy like FBI agent or a cop or something.
Well, he's got like he just dresses up as different characters, but he's really a reporter, newspaper reporter.
Okay. I'm gonna have to watch that again. It's been so long since I've seen that.
Yeah, that movie. I mean, the dry humor. I mean, that's me to a T.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right.
Let's see. Probably 4 and 5. I'm probably gonna have to go with Rocky 4.
Rocky 4 with against the Russian. Yeah,
Rocky 4.
Which is probably my favorite Rocky 2. I mean, don't get me wrong, the first one is so well done, and it's the one that won all the awards. But
Right.
I mean, who doesn't get fired up when he's like running through the snow with the log on his back, and then that's a great movie. It gets you fired up.
Yeah, and then I'd probably say my 5th one is Donnie Brasco.
Oh, I love Donnie Brasco.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Not top 5, but one of my favorites. Johnny Depp, amazing in that role. Al Pacino, amazing in his role. And I think I like that better than Goodfellas and a lot of those other gangster movies. I really do.
I do too. And I do it just because it's based off a real story. I'm a big documentary guy. So like I like the old mob stuff, all the stories behind it. You know, so it's definitely a good story behind it.
One of my favorite scenes in that movie, and it's also kind of disturbing because he got the guy beat up, but he really didn't have a choice, is when they were trying to get him to take off his boots at that Chinese restaurant.
Right.
And that's where he kept his recorder.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had to claim like, my dad died in the war or something like that, and they ended up beating him up in the bathroom.
Right.
But
it really puts it in perspective, like, our law enforcement and some of the undercover work that they do.
Yeah.
That's kind of like spills into Banyan. We do a lot of work with first responders.
Okay.
Firefighters, police officers, EMTs, veterans.
Yeah.
That for whatever reason have untreated PTSD that turn to substance abuse.
Right.
So I've really taken a kind of a liking, and appreciation to what those people do and what they see on a daily basis.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to jump more into that in just one second, but I have to go back because you said kickboxer, and I didn't want to say it at the time in case it came up on your list, but my favorite Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, Bloodsport.
Oh, yeah. That's a great one, too.
Yeah,
that's
I love
a great
that.
one, too.
When the guy throws the powder in his eyes, and now he's fighting blind.
Yep. Another movie based on a true story.
Yeah.
Based on a true story.
Sure, a little loosely based, but
Right.
Yeah, but a
Right.
great movie.
Yeah.
All right. The only other thing I wanted to touch on before we really jump into it, actually, just because this is the first time I'm recording after it, is the Super Bowl, and you said you're a big football fan.
Mm-hmm.
So, who did you have? Who did you predict winning before the game took place?
I was definitely Chiefs all the way.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny you asked that question because obviously, just based on where I live, where I grew up, I'm a diehard Steelers fan.
Yeah, right.
Obviously, we've been pretty fortunate over the years. Steelers being in the playoffs, in and out, every year. So
kind of unfortunate you have to pay the Patriots every year to get there.
Right. Yeah. It's just like we can't beat them. So the playoffs start, and I grew up playing football. I played at the collegiate level. Just small school, and I played quarterback. So I was like, all right. So what am I going to do? I'm gonna root for the old quarterback. So I initially started off with Drew Brees.
Okay.
I want to see the Saints win.
Yeah.
Right. He loses. So then I jump over on the Green Bay Packers bandwagon for Aaron Rodgers.
Right. Trying to get the old head in there.
Yeah. He loses.
Yeah.
Right.
That was a rough game for them.
Right. And then it was just like I really appreciated watching Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
And it was nice to see him excel. I think he's going to be a good star in the NFL coming.
Yeah, as my friend Bones says, he's different. He's doing things we haven't seen before. He seems to be able to throw perfect throws no matter what his arm angle is. Mm-hmm. He's underhand, sidearm, no look. What quarterback has thrown a no look pass before?
Right.
And then even last year, he completed a pass with his opposite hand. He completed a pass with his left hand. And I don't know. There's something special about him for sure.
Yeah.
I think if he continues along this pace, he may end up going down as the best ever.
He definitely has the potential. I was actually, I just, came back up to town I was in Charleston last night, and I stayed with a good friend of mine, and we were talking about Patrick Mahomes and a little bit about Tom Brady. And as much as, we love to hate Tom Brady, he's a warrior.
Oh yeah, an absolute
he's
warrior.
An absolute warrior. He's going to win.
Yeah, I used to hate him as well, and I finally came to the conclusion that I can't. I mean, the guy's a gamer. He's a warrior. He's out there headbutting his line when he's fired up. He's a fighter.
Yeah, and then you look what Patrick Mahomes did. 3 playoff games, including the Super Bowl. Overcame a 10-point deficit in the Super Bowl, a 10-point in the AFC NFC Championship, and a 24-point in the divisional round.
Yeah.
So this guy's he's not going to lose.
Yeah, that's impressive, and not to mention he's one of the only quarterbacks. Like, it seemed like every game I watched this year, the winning quarterback only threw for like 80 yards.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But except for Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I actually predicted San Francisco to win. I wanted the Chiefs to win, but I predicted San Francisco to win because I thought their defense and run game might be able to keep Patrick Mahomes off the field enough, which they kind of did till the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
and
they just couldn't close it.
Yeah, they just couldn't close it. And terrible clock management for the 49ers at the end of the second half. They weren't even trying to get points. You had 3 timeouts left. You had the ball. Why not even try to get in field goal range?
You see that so much. You see teams, especially in the fourth quarter with the lead, they switch their whole game plan to playing not to lose instead of playing to win. Mm-hmm. And then next thing momentum shifts.
Yeah,
and
I can even understand it more in the fourth quarter, even though I still think you should be playing to win. But in the first half, when you have the ball, you definitely have probably the last drive. You have 3 timeouts left, and you're just not calling them.
Right.
I mean, you could see even who's their GM, Lynch.
Yeah,
he was fired up about it up in the press box. He was throwing the timeout signal like crazy. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
But overall, I thought it was a great game. I thought it was a fun game to watch. Patrick Mahomes is definitely something else that for them, and Richard Sherman blew quite a few coverages. He definitely belongs in the zone.
Yeah.
But would they score like 2 or 3 touchdowns in the final 6 minutes or something?
Well, I think it was in the fourth quarter. It was a 21-0 deficit.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yep.
Unbelievable. All right. Well, that's all I had for the randomness. But now I want to get back into what we actually brought you in here for, because I've had quite a few friends that have fell victim at one point in their life or another to the opioid crisis.
Sure.
I think it's a problem all over the United States, and I just want to put as much light on it as I possibly can. I am lucky enough that I never fell victim to it. Not to say that I've never tried an opioid. I just never fell victim to the addiction aspect of it. But so you are at the Banyan Treatment Center. Mm-hmm. Let's dive back into exactly what they do, because it seems like you guys have a lot of different tiers.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, when you talk about substance abuse treatment or mental health, or you wrap it all together and label it behavioral health, we pretty much have something for most issues.
Yeah.
I can't say we're the right place for everybody. But, in retrospect to a lot of different providers out there, some people just do substance abuse. I
was going to say, and yeah, you guys have start to finish, right?
We do.
You can start with detox and...
Yeah, I mean, in the old days, in treatment, basically you had like your typical traditional, 28-day inpatient program. You go there and you stay there for the duration. Everything's taken care of for you, your food, your clothing, your shelter, all your therapies. And then when you leave, you're stepping right back into real life, with all the stressors just coming right at you, especially with, all the destruction that we cause.
Yeah.
Prior to going in.
Absolutely.
And so the one thing that I really appreciate and like about our services is we do a gradual ease back into like real life. So once you're done with your inpatient, then you can go and stay with us at our extended care models.
Okay.
Where, what we really start to do is there's still housing. We still, we're starting to lessen the clinical hours, and we're really starting to get into like life skills.
Yeah.
How are you going to transition back into your life, but just at a slower pace?
Which I think is very important, especially that slower pace thing you were talking about, because something I see in our area in Steubenville, Ohio, is the programs around here. It's like they get you through the detox, and then what they want to do right away is just get you a job, and then they think you're going to be okay. Right. And that's just not how it works. It's a bigger battle than that. And not only is it a bigger battle than that, but getting somebody right into a job when they may or may not be ready, I think is kind of poisonous to their recovery, because they get stressed out, and then you're putting money in their pocket, and their normal thing for stress is to go get high.
Right. Yeah, and you make a good point too, because I mean, I'm in long-term sobriety myself. I got clean almost 10 years ago.
Okay.
April 1st will be my sobriety date. And I'll, God willing, I'll celebrate 10 years.
Yeah. Beautiful, and hopefully congratulations.
Yeah, and my issues, were alcohol, substances. I was pretty much got to myself to a point where it's just, if it was in front of me, it was going to disappear. You know what I mean? But my last 6-7 years, were primarily opiates, heroin, painkillers. But, I had so many negative results from just self-will, right?
Right.
And, now, I've been working in the field for over 8 years, so I've observed a lot of just situations.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And, there's not, unfortunately, there's never going to be a black and white answer for everybody.
No, it's going to be different for
everybody. We all have
everybody.
our own journeys, you know what I mean? But something, a common theme that I've picked up, because I did it, over the years was, we create all this destruction, right? So prior to asking for help, we don't care about our parents. We don't care about our spouse. We don't care about our children. We don't care about our job. We don't care about our finances. We don't care about anything other than ourself and our incessant need to fill ourselves with these substances.
Yeah, chasing the high.
Yeah. And then ironically is we go into treatment and, 7, 14, 21 days into it, we start feeling better. Right?
Yeah.
That kind of happens when you stop putting those substances in your body.
Yeah,
right?
you start recognizing just you have a clearer mind, I'd say.
Yeah, so that's, that and I always tell people, like, that's the trap at that time, because now your mind's just attacking you from all different angles, telling you, like, you feel better. Now it's time to start making up for all the lost time.
Yeah.
Right? So now you put all this stress on yourself. Oh my God, I got to get a job. Oh my God, I got to get into a relationship. Oh my God, I got to, fix this. I got to fix that.
Yeah.
And what you do is you fix yourself right back to the same thing you were doing, because you don't know how to handle the stress.
You're overstressing yourself. You're overwhelmed.
So, it really is, it's just like, it works when people are finally at a point, and that's what's baffling, right?
Yeah.
So everybody has a different path to that point. And
Absolutely.
that point is where you just stop and just say, listen, I'm out of ideas on how to make my life good. Right?
Yeah.
Help me.
Yeah.
And it really is as simple as that as a starting point. Like, I am out of ideas.
And I don't think, and I like that you said help me, because I don't think 90% of people, which is a number I just threw out there, can really do it themselves. They need help and a support system.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So we were going through the detox. So let's just go through, like, how your program works. So say they do the whole system with you. Mm-hmm. So they start with the detox, and then where do they go from there?
Yeah. So if needed, we provide a full medical detox.
Yeah.
The natural progression is you would, probably be at the same location, where the detox is provided, and just step down to what's called a residential level of care.
Okay.
Length of stay vary. You have so many variables. You have.
And the residential care is like, so you're going to like a sober house? No,
residential is it's terminology in our field, is kind of confusing to the layman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's i.e. inpatient.
Okay.
Right. So.
Okay.
Obviously, traditionally that's, people
Inpatient
like to label
care.
it 28 to 30 days.
Yeah. Like the Sandra Bullock movie, 28 Days Later, or whatever.
Yeah, but when you're talking to folks, families and patients, it's really a tough question to answer, because, there's so many outside circumstances that are driving that length of stay that are out of my control. So,
right.
It's just like, we don't know how fast or slow the patient's going to progress or regress.
Yeah.
We don't, then obviously you have managed care involved, which is insurance companies
right.
kind of driving the boat on how many days
they can stay, what they'll pay
right.
for.
You know what I mean? So you just gotta be there for people. You know what I mean?
That's unfortunate too. I think there shouldn't be such a battle with insurance companies too, because it seems like I hear about the insurance companies all the time. My insurance won't cover it. My insurance won't cover it. That's a shame. I think that's something that should really be covered.
Well, I mean, so I have kind of I try to have a fair point of view on, my interpretation of insurance companies. Mm-hmm. I mean, at the end of the day, an insurance company's model is pretty simple, right? Collect more premiums than they pay out in claims.
Right.
I get that.
Yeah.
It's a business,
it's
right?
A business.
It's a business, right?
Yeah.
It's no different than, at the end of the day, treatment facilities, whether they're state-run or private or, part of a big conglomerate that has investors involved, it doesn't matter. It takes funding to keep lights on and people employed and to provide services.
Right.
However, with insurance companies, where I try to be fair is they're definitely not hurting for funding, right? So, I mean, that's pretty well known, right? They probably could be a little more gracious on how, they do approve days. But, if we're being fair, as a sector in behavioral health or the medical field, they've had a lot of people out there, that have committed fraud.
Yeah.
And, medical, billing that's, malpractice and, overbilling and, it's just, I can go on and on and on, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, actually, if you think about it, part of the probably start of the opioid crisis, doctors overprescribing pills that I'm sure insurances were paying for.
Yeah. So it's like, it's almost like, okay, our today's society, unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to view it, I really try not to have an opinion, but insurance companies kind of run the show.
Yeah.
The doctors and providers really don't have, the upper hand.
Yeah.
Nor do I think anybody should have an upper hand.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? But that's just the way our society is. So you got to just roll with the punches.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And do the best you can, for the people.
Yeah. I feel like the two key factors for how long a person's stay is going to be, obviously insurance has to be probably number one, but then the other one is the person themselves, which I think you were kind of alluding to because of their progress or digress, whichever. So, because, I mean, if somebody's there for 20 days, they look like they're doing good, and then they fall back, well, now you should probably be here for longer than 28 days.
Sure.
So it's also on you. So hopefully, and I'm sure people get frustrated when a doctor or somebody says you should probably be here for more days, even though they know that they regressed. Yeah,
so it's like, the misdoings of people that are not doing the right thing in our industry, make it more difficult for people. And that's why I love my company. You know what I mean? My company has one owner, right? Yeah. He is a fantastic human being. The culture that him and some of the executives, in our company have created makes it very enjoyable to work. And I really appreciate the freedom that I have to, be out in my community, West Virginia, Western PA, Ohio, and know that, I could be out in the field, with my heart.
Yeah.
Instead of, just because, again, what I've seen, especially over the years, is the providers that know how to put the patient just a little bit above the business aspect end up reaping the benefits regardless, because, anything in our society is about relationships.
Yeah.
Right. So, when you're working with a patient, or a family, and you just simply do the right thing for them, you know what I mean? Regardless of if it's going to benefit your company, both sides kind of work. It kind of works out for both sides. Right, it's supposed to.
Yeah. Well, and you hear it from I read a lot of these books, some stupid, some good, but any business guru or self-help book or any of those will all tell you, like, make sure that you give to charity and do these things and do things right, because that will come back to you.
Sure.
And I believe in that. I don't think it's necessarily karma. I just think, like you said, you establishing yourself in your community, and then people want to do business with you.
Yeah.
So then you have so we just went over your residence, and then what comes after that?
So if someone is like, from like a diagnosis perspective is primary substance.
Yeah.
Then they would have, before the opportunity to, like, every state minus Massachusetts has basically a full continuum. So Illinois has a full continuum.
What does that mean?
It means that we have a detox res location.
Okay.
So you're inpatient. And then we have an extended care model where we do PHP, IOP, which is partial hospitalization, intensive outpatient, with housing attached to it.
Okay.
Separate, but attached to it.
Right.
You know? And, you know, that's where they can, you know, get an additional lengths of stay, and that's where the gradual progression back into life,
Okay.
you know, occurs. You know, so we have that Illinois, PA. We have that in Florida. Florida, we have multiple detox res locations, one extended care in Pompano.
Okay.
And then we do the same type of model for primary mental health. So, you know, we treat individuals that, you know, either one, you know, substance abuse might not be the primary focus. It could be secondary,
Right.
But maybe people that have, you know,
So basically,
schizophrenia.
I was going to say, basically, when you say that, you found an underlying cause for their addiction.
Correct.
And so now you're attacking the underlying cause.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and we started doing that a few years ago, and that program has just really taken off, you know.
Yeah, well, I feel like that in a lot of people's situations, I feel like that is probably a really big thing. I'd say from my experience with my friends, I think I have one friend that said it was actually kind of easier for him he was addicted to heroin, and it was easier for him to give it up because there was no underlying cause. He was never an unhappy kid. He came from a good home. He didn't have some other mental issue. He just had his addiction.
Right.
So he battled it, but he thinks it was easier for him to stay clean once he got sober because of that. And actually now he can have a beer, and it doesn't bother him. But he attributes that to not having any underlying issues.
Right.
So I think, and the rest of them have all had underlying issues, and so I think it's great that you guys are trying to find out what is causing it and then attacking that problem, because I don't think that probably happens enough, at least to my knowledge.
So what I really, you know, and again, so when I just moved back to, you know, the Weirton, West Virginia area 2 years ago with my wife and my children, and I worked in Florida for 8 years.
Oh, okay.
And
because that's where
I got sober at.
Oh, that's where you got sober?
Yeah, I got sober in Palm Beach, Florida.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
And is that where the main office is for Banyan?
It's about 40 minutes south. Just
okay, but it's in Florida.
Yeah, so I'm in I got sober in Palm Beach. Our corporate headquarters is just north of Fort Lauderdale, Pompano Beach. Just a straight shot down 95. But when I worked down there, you know, I mean, prior to getting into working in this field, you know, I was a union carpenter when I worked in treatment, right? So I knew how to swing a hammer.
Right.
And I was literally outside a 12-step meeting one day, and a guy said, "You ever thought about working in treatment?" And I started at the ground level, you know, just answering phones for families nationwide, making inquiries for their loved ones.
Yeah.
And just started, you know, doing a lot of front-end work, you know, and, you know, after a couple years, great mentorship, you know, at that program, you know, I worked my way up into management, and then I was running the whole office, and it was a really great learning experience. And I'm watching Banyan, you know, who ended up essentially acquiring the company that I worked at for 6 years.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just a simple matter of, you know, the owner that I had worked for 6 years, you know, him and the other owner, they had just been in the field for so many years. They were old. They just wanted to retire.
Yeah.
You know, but they wanted to pass the programs off to a good company, and Banyan was definitely a good fit. So I'm watching Banyan. A lot of people that I knew down there were working for them. I'm watching this program just grow, right? And the word of mouth that they were getting was just fantastic. And the mental health comes into play. And I remember sitting at my desk, you know, as a director of admissions, thinking, that is such a great idea, because if you walk through an ER and you tell them that, hey, I don't know what to do, but I got alcohol or I got drug problems, right?
Yeah.
Pretty good chance that caseworker that's going to help you is going to be able to connect you with a Banyan.
Okay.
Right? Or a treatment facility, right? Because there's a lot of options out there. But for our mental health community, right? So someone gets run through the ER and, you know, they're having suicidal ideations, or they're self-harming themselves, or they're just in a manic episode,
right?
You know, or whatever. they get stabilized, or they were getting stabilized for 3 days. And once they're stabilized in the ER,
They just let them go.
they give them a piece of paper that says follow up with this outpatient therapist.
Yeah.
Well, one, they never go.
Right.
Two, nothing against the outpatient fraternity. It's definitely well needed, but how much change can you affect in 1 hour a week with somebody?
Yeah. Yeah,
You know what
that's
I mean?
true.
So Banyan really added that middle piece. You know what I mean?
Right.
The residential, the step down, and then the outpatient follow up after. So we're given time, for people to adjust.
Yeah. So when you're doing the residential piece, they're seeing like a counselor or a psychiatrist or something to that effect,
Absolutely.
like every day,
Yeah, a
couple times a week.
Yeah, and you know what? I would have to just simply keep it at as needed. You know what I mean? I'm sure there's patients that at the beginning needed every day.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But there's obviously like group sessions, stuff like that.
Yeah, but when you start telling people, that hey, you're gonna see this once a week, and you tell everybody that, then basically what you have is a cookie cutter program, and you're telling everybody that walks through your door, you're the same as the next person.
Right.
And that's just not true.
But
you got to meet people where they're at.
Yeah, and it's because it's not true in anything. It's not true in diet. It's not true in the possibility of whatever pharmaceuticals you need. Everybody reacts to everything different.
Sure, absolutely.
So I did have a question. Is your place state run? Is it state funded or is it private?
We are private.
Private,
one owner.
Okay.
Yep.
And then, you've already talked about it a little bit, but what do you think makes your company, in your opinion, a better option than some of the other ones?
That's a hard question to ask because you know what? There's a lot of great providers out there.
That's why I said better than some of the other ones because I figure there's a lot of good ones.
I would probably say, obviously you're going to have two different ways to look at this. You're going to have patient experience.
Yeah.
Right. And I could tell you, over the 2 years that I've been doing outreach and really working hands on with families and patients going in the doors of our facilities. I've had next to no complaints.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's part of a team that's all doing their part.
Right.
Right. Because it doesn't just take me. It doesn't just take. It takes therapists. It takes techs. It takes clinical directors. It takes, verification specialists. Financial. It's just such
there's a lot of cogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing that I could say that I think helps Banyan stand out to me is the culture in which I get an opportunity to work in. Right. Because I think, especially in our market, because of all the things that others have done wrong,
right.
You know what I mean, based on greed and fraud, it's made facilities struggle to be able to just stay open.
Yeah.
Right. Because, things are changing in our market, so for us to be growing in a struggling market
speaks volumes.
It does. You know what I mean? And I think when you start creating so much stress, within the whole company, then it's just that then your mission dies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we have a really, really great COO too. His name's Eric Oakes. He's a fantastic guy. We get together at least once a year, for meetings, with my section of the company, and we get an opportunity to listen to him. And he's just he's a great person. He has a great delivery system, and you can really tell his heart's in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think the culture within it, I like that you said that because I think that's a huge thing. Having the right mindset in order to help people, I think, is huge.
Yep.
What was the other thing I was going to ask you? I wanted to jump into some of the pharmaceutical aspects of recovery and see what you think of them. Like Suboxone, for instance, it seems to be the most commonly used at this point. And it's, if I remember correctly, the research I saw says it has about an 8% success rate after a year. So what are your thoughts on Suboxone?
So I've definitely come a long way with this substance. Obviously, once I finally got clean and sober in 2010, my first couple of years, I was probably like, I'd probably label myself like a crusader against it.
Against Suboxone?
Against Suboxone,
yeah.
Right? A lot of it was, we make opinions based on our own experiences, right?
Correct.
And so, prior to getting clean, I had the Suboxone doctor that I saw once a month, and I got my prescription, and I probably used Suboxone a few times a month, just in times where I couldn't get street drugs, because that's what I really wanted.
Right.
I'd sell my prescription. We talk about present day, right?
Yeah.
There's a side, in our society that's making a strong argument, well, would you rather have your loved one in a ditch or on Suboxone?
Right.
So with the alarming rate that we're losing people to overdoses.
Oh man, because of especially the introduction of fentanyl.
It's a different game today than when I was using.
Yeah.
So I try to stay out of the opinion business, but I do want to, as much as I can, reinforce, the conversation about, true freedom from active addiction. Like, it's possible.
Oh yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? And I think
because what you're saying is with Suboxone, you obviously don't have a true freedom. You're still reliant on the Suboxone.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, here's the thing. So if someone does it, and I think what was missing in my days was the oversight, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so if we're gonna do Suboxone on an outpatient basis, right? Maybe let's not do 30-day prescriptions, right? Maybe let's do therapy in addition to
have it almost be supplemental
medication, right?
Yeah.
Let's do random urine tests throughout the course of the week to make sure that they're not also dabbling with other drugs,
right?
Methamphetamines, cocaine, marijuana,
yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
If they are, what course of action are we taking? Are we saying, hey, maybe the outpatient Suboxone's not enough? Maybe let's stop this and get you into an inpatient setting, right? Yeah. So what's the oversight? What's the accountability? Instead of just saying, here's a prescription, come back and see me in 30 days.
Yeah.
What change do we because essentially what you're doing is you're taking a person with documented drug abuse history
and giving them drugs.
And giving them a drugs and say, hey, be safe.
Yeah. And
come on.
And it's probably a very similar system to how a lot of people that go through opioid addiction start out with opioid addiction. They get a prescription from a doctor and they get addicted to it, like Oxycontin.
Yeah.
And they get addicted to it, and then next thing you know, they're doing anything they can to get the Oxycontin, and then next thing you know, it's too expensive, and then they're buying heroin on the street.
Yep.
So now you're kind of giving them the same process with the drug that's supposed to be helping them.
Yep.
So I like your idea, follow up and have oversight.
Yeah, and so another thing too is something that I was taught really early on is I got to try to practice open-mindedness, right?
Yeah.
So my ideal for what I want my life to be might not be the next person's.
Correct.
Right? So if someone goes on Suboxone, but their quality in life improves, who am I to say anything?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just like, man, it's like live and let live, and let's be happy for each other if our lives improve.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm really big on that. I'm really big on that as well. If their life is improved and they're doing well, then let them be. Because again, not everybody's the same. Like my buddy, he went through the addiction, and he can still have a few beers now.
I know plenty of people like that.
Yeah, but that's not for everybody,
right?
You know
what I mean. It's to each his own.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Treat others well.
And
don't gossip. Don't pass judgment as much as you can.
And for a while, another friend of ours that was going through the program who had been addicted, he really judged him for still drinking. And he's like, "Listen, man, I don't have the same issue. I can have these beers, and I still never think about doing anything more.
Right. Right.
But I do like your idea with the oversight. I feel like whatever it takes for you to get clean is the route you should take. I do think that you should get to the point where you don't need anything, total freedom, as you put it.
Right.
One thing that I find unfortunate, especially because it's more natural than Suboxone, I don't know. Do you know much about the drug ibogaine?
I actually watched a show. It was like a documentary on a guy. I don't know if he's from Connecticut or something, but he does like the retreats.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I really don't have enough knowledge about it.
So for the ibogaine, it's a hallucinogenic root. Mm-hmm. But from the research that I've done and from following people that think you should do hallucinogenics like once or twice a year as a reset, They say, first of all, ibogaine is a crazy hallucinogen, but it's not one that you want to do for fun because it's too intense, or one for a reset because it's too intense. If you just need a regular reset. But these it's not legal to do in the United States, but these clinics in Mexico and Canada are doing it. And while ibogaine is getting an 8% success rate while Suboxone is getting an 8% success rate after a year's time, ibogaine, from the studies that I've looked, I think are having a 50% success rate. And how most of these places are doing the ibogaine is you get there to the treatment facility, they put you through a battery of tests, monitor your heart, everything, make sure you can handle the situation. Then they give you a small dose of the ibogaine, see how you react, give you a little more until you get to the part where you do hallucinate. So the science behind it is this hallucinogenic actually attacks the part of your brain where your addiction comes from. And it gives you this is a weak word for it, but a momentary reset. It also helps with the problems with detox. So it doesn't make you go through the detox as severely, or some people at all. And it gives you a reset for 6 months to a year, from everything that I've read, for 6 months to a year of your brain not even thinking about it, not wanting it. It's just attacked that addiction center of your brain. Then after 6 months to a year, that kind of resets and goes back to your normal state.
Right.
But it gives you the time to try to reestablish yourself into a normal life. So it's still not an end-all, cure-all, because you still have to want to be clean and want this for yourself in order for it to work for you.
Right.
But when I see those percentages, I'm like, why isn't this legal in the United States? I guess is my big thing.
Right. These, I am all for, people that create and innovate. You know what I mean? I mean, that's how we got with a lot of stuff to where we're at today with a ton of different stuff.
Right.
So I'm all for, anything that helps somebody.
Yeah. And actually, the other thing I like about, like you said, total freedom from it. The other thing I like about it is it's a one-time thing.
Right.
It's not something that you continue to use. You know what I mean? It's one time, and it has from what I see, a decent, a well above average success rate.
Yeah.
And I forgot to mention, I'm sorry I interrupted you, and I forgot to mention that after that, then they have it like it's just like a beautiful spa, but they also have people that you talk to and everything like that. And then they tell you that, you need to continue working towards your sobriety once you leave here.
I have a great story about a guy that I went to high school with, and we're not. We're definitely cordial. We're definitely when we see each other, we're friendly. We have different lives today, but we reconnected in the summer. And I hadn't seen this guy in like 20 years, and this guy is still with the girl that he was starting to date in high school, and their senior year they got in a bad car wreck. It wasn't their fault, and they were partiers just like I was.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Me too.
And you take two kids that like to party, and you put big insurance settlements in their pockets, right? And there that road opens up. They have means to use, right?
Not just that, not just means to use because they have that big pocketbook now, but also if they were in a really bad car wreck, I'm sure they probably got prescriptions for some sort of painkiller during that process.
I know like one of them got like a metal hip, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Anyhow, fast forward a couple years after, the accident, they went through the whole cocaine phase, and then, they're heroin junkies.
Yeah.
Right? And, when I ran into this person in the summer, we were asking each other, how's everything going? He's a father now, right? And he doesn't do the things that I do in my recovery, right? He still drinks beer, right? Yeah. So I was asking him, how'd you guys stop, shooting dope? And they literally took peyote.
Oh yeah, peyote.
They took peyote.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there telling me this story, and like if you know this guy, you're like, that is so par for the course for this guy, right?
Right.
But it just amazes me. So at moments like that, you know what I mean? I have a decision to make, right? I could be the knucklehead that wants to take the high horse and say, the way I got sober is the only way to get sober. And if you don't do it my way, you're not doing it the right way.
Yeah, which is just crazy.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm looking at a guy that's a good father, still with the same woman.
Right.
You know what I mean? Has a great job now at a good company.
Right.
Who am I?
Yeah.
You know?
And obviously, and to me, you can say totally free from the addiction.
Sure.
Because I mean, to me, if you can have a beer and not jump back into it, then you found your way out. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that I do want to touch on that peyote thing, because there are so many of the world's wealthy now, even ultra wealthy, mm-hmm. that go on these retreats with
Sure.
peyote and stuff, and they say it's just a reset. They don't use it like. You know, I don't know. When you were younger, maybe you partied with hallucinogens. Some I did. Mm-hmm. I don't anymore. It terrifies me.
Yeah.
But we did it to party. We did it to have fun.
Sure.
These guys are doing it while they may end up having fun in it. They're doing it to be self-reflective and try to find problem points in their life that they may not even realize are bothering them.
Right.
And they use it as a reset to deal with those issues. Mm-hmm. And when I think about it in that aspect, I suddenly think, well, maybe I should take one of these trips because my life's not going exactly how I want it to.
Yeah.
And then I get terrified, like I said.
Yeah, I mean, it's the truth. You know, when we talk about be true to thy own self, you know, if I did something like that, I would be a patient at our mental health facility.
Right.
I mean, it's as simple as that.
Well, and honestly, it is something you have to worry about as well, because things like that can actually, for lack of a better term, release like dormant schizophrenia.
Sure.
Where you haven't had symptoms yet, but then you do that, and it's like, oh, you were actually on your way towards at some point maybe schizophrenia, but this actually released it. You know what I mean? Right. So you have to be careful with that. Same thing with marijuana. Which I'm a marijuana advocate. I do also say that I don't think you should be using marijuana in high school like I did. I think you should wait till your brain is fully developed. Mm-hmm. But I also think it should be legal medically for anybody who needs it for whatever purpose, because it has less side effects than Tylenol.
Right.
Another thing I wanted to touch on is, what do you think the biggest problem is with how addiction is handled sometimes? Because you see so many people relapsing, and it's going to happen regardless, because the person really has to be ready. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure you've witnessed some programs, I don't want you to name any different programs, where there's some fault in their system. Like I said, one for local, they just get them through detox and like just get them into a job.
See, I guess I don't look at it like that, because at the end of the day, I would like to think that every treatment system modality out there has probably helped at least one person, right?
True. And if you're helping one. Right.
So I'm a big believer at trying to practice, non-judgment.
Yeah.
Hope the best for people. You know, I don't have to agree with everything they do, but I also don't have to like disparage them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
To me, that just makes no sense.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, they might be able to fill a need for me, for a person I'm trying to help, that I can't.
Yeah.
Right. I think the thing that if I could make any comment to maybe just as a whole, what we should be striving more for is, I really think that, when we talk about addiction and mental health, whatever it is, in the individual, I think the one thing that is a common theme that runs through our brains is a simple lack of hope that we could be any different.
No, for the actual addict.
So I think about this often. I like having conversations about and again, I got to remember, I'm not in control. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm just hopefully a small spoke on the wheel out here trying to, help people, because people did it for me. Right. But I'm always looking for like combinations of words, sincerity, what can I do for this person
to help them the best I can.
To help them to have that light bulb come on and say, maybe recovery is possible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because once you get that, then you can start. But man, I don't know how many times that I would sit in detox bedrooms with just filled with guilt and remorse and shame on all the bad things that I did. Right. And I can't blame my addiction. At the end of the day, the one thing that I believe is, when we do bad things out there, I might not be a bad person, but I still got to own those acts. Right. It was me.
Because it was still your decision to do whichever thing you did.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, but I understand, sitting, alone where there's not a soul on this earth that would answer your call.
Yeah.
Because you pushed everybody away. You became a liability in people's lives. And know what that feels like.
Yeah.
And then to have someone say something to me, and it just redirects my thinking.
Right.
Like, okay, maybe I don't have to be like this the rest of my life.
Because that despair has to be
It's terrible.
Just strangling.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's suffocating. You know what I mean? And that's the thing that when we can't get through that. We just say, I'll just go back to status quo.
Yeah.
You know what
you start to feel so overwhelmed by trying to get clean.
Yep.
Because you've burned all these bridges and doing all these things that you just like, you know what? There's no way out. I'm just going to go back to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know how many times I would be around people that had years of sobriety, and I'm trying, I got 15 days here, 30 days here, and you're listening to these people with years, and they're telling you, if I would have dreamed about what my life was going to be like at 5 years or 10 years, I would have undershot the mark. My life is beyond my wildest dreams, right? And I would sit there and be like, he is so full of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's so true.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that doesn't mean that, on our journey we don't have bumps in the road. Listen, over the past 10 years, I had some bumps in the road. I had health issues I had to deal with.
Yeah.
Side effects from the medication, which was not fun.
Right.
You know what I mean? But, I kept myself in the middle as much as I could, kept myself around good people, tapped into their strength when I didn't have any.
Yeah.
And that's what we do for each other.
Yeah, I think to me, that is one of the biggest things I see that I love with people in recovery is I'd say 99% of them want to help other people.
Sure.
And to me, that is such a beautiful thing. And I see that these groups of people who may not have known each other otherwise become like family and check on each other and help each other. And plain and simple, probably the biggest thing is they answer their phone. And I think that's just massive. How many people that don't have the same experience when dealing with an addict won't answer their phone?
Right.
Because they're like, oh my God, I don't want to deal with this.
Right.
And that's a sad thing. Sometimes even family members,
Yep.
But people who have been through the same thing, they answer the phone. They want to be there. They want to help.
Yeah, but I mean, it almost becomes over a period of time a sense of duty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like for the life that I have after what I did, I owe.
Right. That's one thing I wanted to ask you too. How fulfilling is your work with what you went through in your life, and now you get to help other people?
The reward is you lay your head down at night, and you might whatever your practices are. Mine are try to kind of go through my day and kind of see where I failed, what I could do better. Not exaggerate, my rights or my wrongs. You know what I mean? And be able to lay my head down and just feel okay in my own dang skin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's something that was foreign to me probably for 29 years.
Yeah.
29 years.
God.
Just
not being able
just
to
feeling out of sorts.
Yeah.
Being in a crowd of people who were essentially my friends.
Right.
And just feeling like I didn't belong.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's all about. You know what I mean? But I just don't feel like that today.
And that's great. That's awesome. The last thing I really wanted to go over or ask you is if you had any advice for somebody struggling with addiction. What do you think that would be?
I mean, I would just say is just grab somebody. You know what I mean? Like just pull someone aside. You know what I mean? And try to have a moment where you just don't care what people think about you. Because here's the thing. We got all these things when we're in the contemplation stage, right? It's starting to become apparent that we got a problem, right? And we don't have an answer, right? So, the natural progression is we're probably going to need to ask for help. But then you don't, right? What are they going to think about me? It's embarrassing. And you start putting these expectations that you're supposed to be something. Right?
Yeah.
And what people, if you just seek somebody out that's been there, like me, right? Like millions of other people,
right?
That have
tons
experienced
of people.
Recovery. And that's the thing our society, we talk about all the overdoses and all the deaths, and we should.
Absolutely.
Every single one of those people deserve to be talked about right? But let's talk about the successes. You know what I mean? Because that produces hope for the people that aren't successful.
Right.
You know what I mean? Oh, this group's doing it. This person did it. You know what I mean? Just ask, just fight through that and ask for help, because what you don't realize is you're going to get somebody that is non-judgmental, that has been there, that is probably going to share parallel stories that you're sharing with them, and then a connection happens, right? And then, something can happen from there. So you got to fight through that, all that crap going through your brain, that false narrative about yourself.
Yeah, I really like that. Just get to a period where you don't give a shit what people think.
Right.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I think that's probably key to being successful in your rehabilitation. I actually had another question for you, but that brought up something to me that I want to go over, because I see people all the time complain, sadly, maybe uninformed people or people who just haven't dealt with it, or maybe people who've been wronged in some way, but they get really in an uproar about Narcan and how they don't think the same people should be getting Narcan all the time and being saved. I want to know your thoughts on Narcan and what you would say to somebody that says we shouldn't be giving these people Narcan.
I'm pro Narcan.
Yeah.
I seen it. Here's the thing.
I am too.
At the end of the day, this is like, you could debate it from, we're disrupting natural selection, right?
Right.
But are we?
Yeah.
How do we not know that some divine thing helped us create Narcan? No one knows, right? So, the crazy thing is, and I've seen people talk like that on social media.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I've heard it. Matter of fact, and I'm not gonna, I don't want to pinpoint, but I was at an establishment, a medical establishment, a hospital, if you will.
Yeah.
And I get called to this location, periodically, to help people that come through the ER that, are on the fence, right, about getting help. And I was sitting there, and this was 2 years ago. And one of the nurse's aides, if you will, he was watching this person outside the door, and the guy was on suicide watch.
Okay.
Right? And the guy didn't know I was in recovery, right? And the guy made a comment to me. He's like, these people, are just pains in my ass. If these people just need to be put on an island by themselves and let them duke it out, with no resources.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, man, this is a medical worker.
Right.
This is someone that's supposed to maybe have some empathy.
That's so sad.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it kind of goes to your question about the Narcan, right? Like, I would probably just say, man, if you don't have nothing nice to say, just don't say it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because what if that was your kid?
Right.
You know what I mean?
What if it was your relative?
You know what I mean? Like, before Narcan became a nasal thing,
Yeah.
I had an experience in 2000. It was 2005. I would probably say around March. My best friend, who ended up passing away. We were, two peas in a pod. Every day was like Groundhog Day, getting money together, driving to Pittsburgh, getting heroin,
Yeah.
using, coming home, and figuring out the next scheme for next day. Right?
Yeah.
That was our lives. And I'd never seen anybody overdose. And I remember we had two other people with us, and we were on our way up there. And the other people with us had said to us, hey, whatever you guys are typically used to doing amount-wise, you do like half of this. This is like really good stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm driving. So we go up to the north side, and we get this batch of heroin. And I'll never forget, it had the Army Airborne stamp on it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And so we're coming through the Fort Pitt tunnels on 376, heading back up to Robinson. And I got a Nissan Xterra with a governor on it. Right? So every time it hit 90, it would shut down. Right? Yeah. So again, never seen anybody overdose. Was definitely one of those guys, it's not going to happen to me.
Right.
You know what
Which
I
I
mean?
think so many people think.
Yeah, right? So I look over at my passenger seat at my best friend, and he's got like 4 empty baggies, and they're telling us to do like 2.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And so he pushes injects it into his vein, and immediately his head goes down. Right? And I pull his hair back, and his lips are blue, and he's not breathing, and he's unresponsive. And I'm like, and the 2 people in back, they're just like not even missing a beat. They're just trying to get high.
Right.
Because we're incapable of being concerned about another human being.
Yeah.
Right.
They just don't give a shit.
And none of us did. Right. Now I'm like, panicking, like, what am I going to do? Do I turn around and go back through the tunnels to UPMC, or do I just try to hightail it to Weirton Medical Center?
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do, right?
Right.
So I'm hitting 90, it's shutting down, right? I had made the decision I'm going to try to make it to Weirton. I take the loop to get back on 22, and I realize as soon as I get on 22, he's not going to make it.
Yeah.
So I take that first exit on the Tonydale, right? And there used to be a BP gas station
Yep,
there.
I remember. Yep.
So when I come up that ramp, my idea was I was gonna go get some ice. I'd heard that, put it on them and try to do CPR.
Yeah.
Well, as I'm pulling up, getting ready to pull into that parking lot, there's two patrolmen sitting there. So selfishly, I was like, well, I didn't want to get in trouble.
Right.
My best friend's dying, but I didn't want to get in trouble. Right. So I go over the overpass, and I believe there's like an ice cream parlor over there.
Okay.
Or on that side. It goes over 22, and there just happened to be a paramedic sitting there eating his lunch.
Oh, man.
An ambulance. Right?
Couldn't get luckier.
And I literally walked over and knocked on the door, gave all the drugs to the two people in back and told them start walking. They were just walking up 22, and I literally watched them. This was 2005. I watched them get him in the back of the car and run Narcan through IV, and it was like the dead awoke.
Yeah. Man, there wasn't even a shot at the time. It had to go through IV.
IV.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he got 3 more months to try, and he couldn't get it. Ironically, we relapsed down in Charleston together, and I hadn't talked to him for 3 days, and I was still holding a job. I was working construction, and it was on a Tuesday, and I got rained out at work. So I went to a neighborhood and got a bunch of like cocaine, and was driving down. I was going to go surprise him and party with him. Well, somehow he had got money and went up to Pittsburgh and bought a batch of heroin, and on these bags it said toxic.
Good.
And I remember I walked through the door of the apartment that he was staying at, and he was leaning up against he had been sitting at a desk, and he fell over, and he was leaning on his head up against the closet door. And I checked his pulse. He was gone.
You found him.
Yeah, I found him.
Oh, man.
You know what I mean?
That had to be so rough.
So, all that, I don't care if someone needs Narcan 3 million times.
Yeah.
That person's getting a shot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I actually agree. First of all, like you said, with the natural selection, people say, no, we're messing with natural selection. Okay, well, who says we didn't mess with natural selection when we came up with these opioids?
That's what I'm saying. But chemo's not messing with natural selection.
Right.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah. And then my other thing is, if you're watching somebody die and you can help them and choose not to and choose to watch them die, I think that speaks more about who you are as a person than it does about the addict that you're refusing to help and letting die.
Yeah, and I don't see how that is not conflicting. People that talk like that is not conflicting with the Samaritan law, the Good Samaritan law. Like I'm pretty sure. Like if someone's dying, like you got to do something.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I don't see how it's not conflicting, because you'll hear that from a lot of people who consider themselves to be Christians. Yeah. I don't see how it's not conflicting with their core values as well.
Yeah, it's simple ignorance.
Yeah,
it's just people that aren't educated
or haven't dealt with it.
Correct.
Yeah, you know because if it was your family member, you'd be like, why the fuck aren't you giving them that shot? I don't understand what you're doing.
Yeah, that's all it is.
So now to get back off of that, my other question I had for you is any advice you may have for the family of an addict.
You take a chapter out of my parents' playbook. I got clean and sober when I was 29. I always had this way, to present the appearance that I was doing good just because I wanted to reel them back into my good graces because I knew I could manipulate them. Right? The sooner that you can pull the plug and practice tough love, the sooner you will give your loved one a chance. Stop enabling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Give your loved one time for their feet to match their mouth. Right? You know what I mean? Because I tell you what, for probably the first, year or two, I'd probably say, even though I was doing good, I'd probably say that my parents were probably suspicious about what was coming out of my mouth. But once they start seeing my actions,
because you had lied so many times,
right?
Yeah.
So it's just like if if your loved one's using and you want them to get clean and they're staying in your house and you're paying their car payment and you're paying their cell phone, you're giving them a means to use.
Yeah.
Right? pull it
Right.
all. It's tough. I got a 5 and 6 year old. I don't know, maybe one day I might have to give myself that advice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But from your experience, that would be your biggest advice is,
Yeah, because here's the thing. If an addict or an alcoholic's ability to continue on the path that they're going is easy, they're going to do it.
yeah.
I mean, quite frankly, if I would have had $20 the day that I got sober,
Yeah.
I'd have got sober the next day.
Right. Because the path is easy, then you feel like there's almost no reason to get sober.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, what? Life is fine.
Yeah.
I got no worries.
Yeah, because, I mean, we make all these sweet promises, and at the end of the day, tomorrow never comes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's always the next day,
Yeah.
you know?
All right, brother. Well, I think we covered pretty much everything I wanted to cover. Is there anything that you felt you wanted to get out there?
No, I really appreciate the opportunity. Really enjoyed it, and I think that's it, man.
All right. Well, let's just go ahead and plug. We got BanyanTreatmentCenter.com. That is BanyanTreatmentCenter.com. BanyanTreatmentCenter.com. You can also reach them at 187.
Yeah, the best number, like I said, usually the numbers on the website, you got to go through like voice automated prompts.
Okay.
So I always tell people, just call directly to our admissions department. It's 888-223-8924.
Okay. And I know you do some of your own speaking and stuff sometimes. Is that through Banyan, or is that just something you do on your own?
Generally, so I started about 6 months ago through West Virginia Governor Jim Justice. He appointed, through the cabinet secretary, he appointed an individual named Jack Lukehart. Jack Lukehart is essentially, his title is Director of Military Affairs for the state of West Virginia.
Okay.
Jack is, I don't know if it's 20, 25, 30 years, but I mean, he was in law enforcement for a long time. And he works in Putnam County, which is like Taze Valley, Hurricane, Winfield area, in between Charleston, Huntington.
Okay.
And like the last 10 years, 15 years of his tenure with law enforcement, all he did was undercover for the DEA doing biker gangs and dope.
Okay.
So he had reached out to me through a mutual friend, which was actually my first therapist down in Charleston. So I just started helping him out. He has a paid position. He does a lot of the prevention work. I do it because I just want to volunteer my time. So I've been afforded an opportunity to start going into high schools in West Virginia and just speaking to the kids. And me and him speak from two different platforms.
Yeah. So those bookings are happening through him.
Correct.
So how, if somebody wanted to have you come talk, how would they go about booking that?
I mean, best thing to do is, I always give my personal cell phone out to anyone.
Okay.
I mean, I couldn't imagine me turning down, an opportunity to help an organization, a person, a school. I could be contacted at 304-919-3103. And, if someone reaches out to me, there's a pretty good chance I'm going to go do it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
All right. Good deal. All right, brother. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. Like I said, I think this is a very important topic. And if you ever have new information or anything you want to speak on, I'd love to have you back on. I think this went well.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me.
No problem. This is the Gathering of Fools. We're out.